It is 9:12 p.m. On Thursday, December 15th. We have been waiting for Jeffrey Hahn for about 12 minutes.
At least. It's like 15.
At least. Landon Rush here with me.
Hey,
this
hey
is
Josh, how
Fantasy
are you?
Inception. We're just going to chat until Geoff gets on, but we'll see how long this kid takes. I don't even
when
know
and if he
what
comes
he's doing.
on. What
Landon,
an exciting last week we got here.
I know.
A lot happening.
Like Geoff says he's setting them now. I feel like the fact that every team was in it and like almost to the end shows either that there's no such thing as being good at fantasy football, or that we're all just really good at fantasy football.
Yeah, I'd like to take the latter part of that, but it seems that a lot of people that I've talked to that are in leagues, everyone seems to be like all bunched up this year, more so than I remember.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It does. I don't know.
I do know that one of the things I've heard in the past is like, so the reason that you want to go RB in the first round is because most years there's an RB who's like a league winner, and there's a certain points per game that those league winners get, which is like 25 points per game. Last year, Jonathan Taylor was the number one RB and had the lowest points per game of any number one RB. And Eckler is the number one, I think Eckler, maybe Jacobs, Eckler is the number one RB this year and is like significantly lower. So like, I think the fact that there's not an RB that's just crushing it for one of these teams or a couple teams, like maybe that makes a big difference. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, Josh Jacobs.
It's good though.
Yeah, it's nice. It makes it
keeps everybody invested.
Yeah, we got to come up, like Moreau said, we got to come up with a last place punishment.
Penalty.
Okay. However you want to say it.
Sure.
But yeah, it's
his were
cool
excessive though.
Yeah, I'm not driving an Uber. No chance.
I think I'd get lost, even with Google.
I would get a belly button ring if I were in last place.
Would you?
I would, because I'm confident that I wouldn't get last place.
I am too, but I just got last place in my work league.
For real?
Yeah, the first place chose Josh Allen in for the fourth pick. It's a 14-team snake. First place chose Josh Allen with the fourth pick. And I chose Javonte Williams and Chase and then Javonte, and then went very heavy on Denver. That was But I never thought I was going to get last place in any league. So
who else did you get from Denver? Sutton?
Judy, Javonte, and Russell Wilson. And like there was zero QBs. I've never played 14-team, so I just thought I was set with Russell Wilson, and then I wasn't, and there was no one available.
Yeah.
So it's not been good.
Do you think that maybe the Denver Broncos being so bad has anything to do with Javonte?
What their name was?
Yeah.
Just put my jersey on for the first time. Broncos orange. Let's ride.
For a while. How's it going?
Good. Yourself? Did you already recorded?
Yeah, we've been going for like
we're on
6
question
minutes.
4 right now.
Yeah, I've been asking myself questions and answering them.
My bad. All right. Well, thanks for having me.
How's it going? Were your kids just
no,
like
it was
no
actually
dad?
A pretty good night. No, it was a pretty good night for us. But yeah, just you got to that point where I had to kind of exit the room, and she got
Did you like
down.
walk backwards slowly?
I slowly got out of the chair, but and then just made a little bit of a crack to where it woke her up enough. So my wife was nice enough to step in. So
that's nice. Can I ask you guys a question unrelated completely to fantasy football?
Of course.
When you guys are on video, whether it's for work or the podcast, are you guys looking at the camera, or are you looking at the other people? I typically just
look at myself.
That's
Correct.
That's. I I was on a call earlier, like a parent teacher conference. It was on Zoom with Becca, my wife, and she like looked at the camera the whole time, and I was like,
wow.
how do you do? Like, it's much nicer for the other person,
Right.
but how do you do that? Like,
I can't do that.
I can't do it.
Nothing. Anyways, unrelated to fantasy. Welcome to Fantasy Inception. We'll see how much of this Chris cuts out. All right, we've got a full show, a lot of playoff talk. So we're going to talk. We'll quickly do the rank of results from last week. We'll talk Clowntown both last week because it was an intense week in almost every matchup. And
Christmas
then
tree coming in there. Can you see my Christmas tree in the background?
Yeah,
here?
it's beautiful.
Yeah, put that up here.
Love
I thought it was just
The
like
reflection of the lights. It kind of
background.
looks like lights.
No, just the background.
Yeah, banking off the glass. Really. Yeah, it is what it is.
It looks nice,
Right.
man.
All right, cool.
Really beautiful, just like you.
Set it up here for the show today.
That's why you were late.
Take it down when you're
Part of
done.
the reason.
When the show's over, just take it down and
Oh,
see what your
no
kids
way.
say. We'll do Hondo's Huddle, and we'll look at next week for Clowntown, and then we'll turn our attention to the Dynasty playoffs and talk those. All right, so rank 'em results. Fender won, Landon lost. Now we'll look at Clowntown week 14.
I can't believe I said what I did.
What do you
That's pretty
mean?
weak. That's pretty dumb. You should have at least just taken me up for the wide receivers.
The opposite
Yeah,
of Geoff. I was just so drunk. I'm like, oh no, opposite of
Were you at a
Geoff.
wedding? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah.
I went when I was looking to calculate everybody's scores. I was like, did Landon send me results? No. And then initially I was going to put you as like a 0, and he's like, well, he did say reverse, so let's see what his score would have been. And it was like 1 point better than Geoff, like 1 point worse than Jeff's, like 2 points worse than mine. Like we both, the Kyler injury and whatever running back was just crushed us. Fender, I think, is really intent on trying to win this. Anyways, all right. First matchup, number 1, Crispy versus, at the time, number 2, Olave Kinte, Matt Fender. This is the closest matchup of the year. You can see that by the score. Fender could have locked.
Did I call it?
Did you?
I called that it was going to come down to the Monday night game. I said this is going to be a tight one.
You did
No,
say
well,
that.
you did call it.
Yeah.
Fender could have locked in a playoff berth for like the 9th week in a row. Landon, Chris won, but was the loser of the day, having Kyler tear his ACL. There are a lot of options, or were a lot of options, I guess there still are, on the waiver wire for Chris. Which QB would you have chosen? Chris went with Watson and Mike White from the Jets.
Yeah. I put $1 on each, and I probably would have done the same exact thing. So, it's a good move by him. Mike White has a great matchup this week against Detroit. The only thing that scares me with Mike White is his rib injury. He said he's good to go, supposedly, but all it takes is one hit, and he's out for the game. So there's a little risk with that. And I think Watson. I think you should play White this week, but I think Watson is. I think he'll get better as the year goes on. If Romance is in the playoffs, so he should get better next week. But I think he got the 2 best quarterbacks out there this week.
Geoff.
Yeah, the guy's averaging 300 yards per game, right?
Mike White?
3 games. Yeah, White. And
I feel like you have to say his whole name, Mike White, every time.
Yep, he
Mike
didn't necessarily have a touchdown in the Buffalo game, but still decent production. And, hey, he's earned the respect of his teammates, too. Taking those hits, popping back up. The guys really rallied around him. I like what we're seeing out of Mike White. I think New York Jets have found their quarterback of the future.
Really? You think so?
Oh,
I do believe so, yes.
Do you think so? So you don't think Zach Wilson gets another chance with the Jets? What do you think the Jets do with him then? Because he's down his rookie contract. He's got 2 more years.
Yeah, I think they'll probably continue to carry him as a backup. But this guy, like I said, Mike White seems to have the trust of the locker room, the respect of the locker room, and these guys want to play for him. You heard Garrett Wilson kind of give the old "that's my boy. I'll go to war with him."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, again, you're not going to break up that chemistry right now in the late charge that they're trying to make to make the playoffs. So
well, that'd be exciting.
And if he does anything leading up to that, I mean, I think the Jets have to continue to roll with him.
Now, I don't have the stats in front of me, but even though Zach Wilson wasn't playing that well, they were winning with Zach Wilson. I think they're 1-2 with Mr. White.
Yeah, but they were not. That was when Hall, I think, was still playing, and they were very run intensive. They were not.
Yeah.
Wilson was 12 of 18 for 100 yards. They were not. That'd be fun to watch. Geoff, obviously you don't want to lose a stud player, but in a 1 QB league, is it the best thing, I guess, to be losing a QB versus a running back receiver just because of the options available?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in a 10-team, 1 QB league, but even that said, we still have pretty slim pickings across the board in our league. I mean, Landon showed us that last week, right? It's hard to find guys that are in the right matchups. So, if I had to answer
just insulting Landon with that.
No, I'm not insulting him, just speaking the truth. But if I had to answer the question truthfully, I'd say maybe tight end would be the ideal position to lose a stud. There's only
Kelsey,
two true studs out there. But yeah, Kelsey's really the only guy right now, given the fall off of Mandrews. And that said, I think it creates maybe a little bit more of an equal playing field if you do lose a tight end, because everybody's kind of in the same boat as far as 3 catch for 30 yards, hoping to get a TD out of a guy, or defense, right? You can only stream a defense, so that would probably be the best thing to lose. But I know where you're going. I know where you're going with that question. So yes, I guess QB is probably the best.
You're good with your answer.
Okay.
Landon, for Fender, he has suffered some injury luck as of late. He lost Debo probably for at least the next few weeks. Ramondre's out, I would assume, this week and maybe next week. Which of the two is the bigger loss in your eyes?
They're both pretty big losses. But
that's not a good answer.
Yeah, but let me finish. If I had to pick one, I would say probably Ramondre is the bigger loss of the two. He's been on an absolute tear lately. He's scored double-digit fantasy points in his previous 10 games prior to getting hurt against Arizona. He's the RB13 in our league, and that includes the 2 points that he got the last game when he got hurt, so he probably would be top 10 if he played that game. So losing arguably a top 10 running back is pretty big in the stretch run here.
How you doing over there? Not too good.
Is that from something?
What's that from?
Seinfeld, Bubble Boy.
How you doing over there? Not too good.
I don't remember. I know the episode. Anyways, Geoff, if Fender makes the playoffs and comes up
he's going
against
for
Chris,
the last trivia piece, right? He's got to say the Moors. Says the Moors, and it's the Moose.
Okay.
All right.
If Fender
pretzels.
makes the playoffs, I am thirsty. And goes up against Chris. So if we have this matchup in the playoffs, which of these teams do you think wins that matchup?
Yeah, I'd still take Chris's team, despite a record of 8-6 for Fender, which in our league this year seems to be pretty respectable, and a good win against yours truly. I still think that I think Chris has better depth. Guys like Dobbins, Fournette, Burks, I guess if he gets out of concussion protocol, and Patterson on his bench, all plug and play guys there for him. And truthfully, I haven't been impressed with Fender's team this season. I'm just saying, as I look at this team, I'm surprised he's in the position that he is. Good for him, but I'm jealous.
He has done a really good job on the waiver wire. He's picked up a lot of really good players.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's where I stand. I got to take Chris's team over
totally.
Fender's.
Next matchup, another incredibly close one. Bryden barely beats Landon. Again, I believe this came down Monday night as well, right, Landon?
Oh, yeah.
Bryden is pretty much locked into the playoffs. He could technically get kicked out of it, but he's got a pretty big point total, so that's not going to happen. Point advantage, so that's not going to happen. Landon, you started the week with Carr getting nothing. So I assume you thought you were dead this week. Was Sunday at least a good day for you since it looked like you had a good chance to win?
Yeah, it was quite a roller coaster this week for me. It was down in the pits with the Derek Carr pickup for 2.5 points. I think that's the lowest amount I've ever gotten from a quarterback that didn't get hurt. So I didn't think I really had any chance. And then Sunday was pretty good. I think I looked at one point and towards the latter part of the noon games, I was like a favorite to win. And then Miles Sanders broke off a 41-yard, I think, touchdown run, maybe which longer, I believe is like about 12 points in our league. So then I needed 30 points from 3 players. And then Jeff Wilson gets hurt on Sunday night. And then Connor had a huge game, and it was all coming. It was all over the place. So I didn't think it'd be as close as it was, but I think it's upsetting when it's as close as it is because you can see how close you could have. All it takes is one more catch or whatever it is, and I could have won that game. But
yeah, I did get some pleasure because I did pick up Geoff, and strength, and I know he was out there on the waivers.
I knew you were going to get him.
Yeah, and I did take some pleasure in knowing that I got those 30 points.
Yeah, and
that was good.
Bryden blocking me from Kirk Cousins won him that week, so that was a good move.
Yep. Gotta play defensive sometimes. Geoff, aside from the brutal injury to Lamar and assuming Landon figures out his QB or Lamar comes back, Landon's team looks pretty fucking loaded, especially at the receiver position. If you were one of the sort of locked-in playoff teams, Chris, Bryden, even Matt, and you saw that the teams that were fighting for that last spot were my team, Landon's, and BJV. Which of those teams would you fear the most in terms of making the playoffs and being a threat?
Yeah, I mean, I think Landon's team looks outstanding. I mean, that's a juggernaut of a team he's got put together there. So, but that being said, I like your team, man. I really do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think I mean, I said this, I think 2 weeks ago when you had asked, who the 4 teams were going to make the playoffs. I threw your name in the hat, and you got a little sour grapes about, I've got bad matchups coming in the next 3 weeks. And look, your
impression is spot on, by the way.
Getting hot at the right time, right? So that's kind of where I lean there.
All right. I was setting you up to say Landon because I think Landon's team is just
look. I think his team is great. Yeah, absolutely. I think if he gets in the playoffs, he's got a very legitimate chance to win a championship.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Landon, for Bryden's team, how would you rank him against Chris and Finder's beat-up teams?
Out of those, if I had to rank them, I would still go Rolance first, even though we lost Kyler. Then I would go Bryden, and then Fender last.
Matt, I truthfully don't intend for this to just be us ragging on you. It just happens.
But I
mean, truth on this podcast. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Geoff, as we get closer to, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, besides losing Kyler, I mean, he has Hopkins. That's got to affect Hopkins' status as well. Yeah. You would think, but who knows? Something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. Jeff, as we get closer to...
Let's just say this, Colt McCoy is serviceable, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a good backup.
Gets the ball out quick is the one thing. I mean, if you watch that game, you could see it. They were talking a lot about it. He doesn't want to be standing back there too long, so he's trying to release the ball as quick as he can before he just gets slammed. But I think that bodes well maybe a little bit for Hopkins. And they put more on IR, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to open up some targets as well. So I do think that Hopkins can survive with McCoy as his quarterback.
For sure. I do think, as we saw in the last game, that everything you just said favors Connor getting maybe a higher upside than he normally would, because he looked like a stud.
He looked great, but he got dinged up in that game. Yeah.
So
he came back up.
He stays healthy. Geoff, as we get closer to the real NFL teams locking up their playoff spots, which teams do you think were as fantasy managers at most risk for having them sit their guys in week 16 and 17?
Yeah, it's a good question, but honestly, given the landscape of where the NFL is right now, I don't think any team will see sitting their starters. I mean,
even like Philly, that's just dominating, or like Minnesota.
Philly, but you think about it, Dallas is 2 games behind them and they're trying to catch them. And so, like, having first place in the division overall will give you home field advantage throughout the playoffs, get that first round bye. Like, those are things that all these teams are fighting for. So, especially that home field advantage, that's critical. So, I think Philly continues to remain foot on the gas. Maybe week 17, but or I guess week 18, but we don't play week 18, right? So I think they'll continue to play through week 17, and so I think we're good there. But if you look at the landscape, Minnesota, they're potentially 10-3, chasing to have the best record in the NFC as well. So I don't think they're gonna rest any of their starters. The AFC is just tight. AFC East,
all around,
the West is somewhat tight. Chargers kind of making a late push here as well. So the North is tight. The South is a 2-man race, but I don't think any of those teams are really giving up, or the studs aren't on necessarily the South, the AFC South teams like the Colts and the Texans. And as far as the NFC goes, NFC East is obviously really tight. The NFC South is tight, although it's a mess. All those teams are still in contention. And then we can look at the West. It's a 2-man race, and the NFC North appears to be locked up. So for the most part, but you got to look at teams like Detroit. They continue to kind of make a push.
Man.
They look good.
They look great, and you hear a lot of people saying, like, if they can just go on a late run here, and just get into the playoffs, they seem to be the team that experts say no team kind of wants to play right now. Right?
Detroit is so funny to me because Goff in the last 3 or 4 weeks has gone from like a stopgap to
looks outstanding.
To Detroit's not going to draft a QB, even though they have a really high pick. Goff is good enough, and a lot of times with the really bad teams like a Houston, you see either maybe like their pass defense shows like, oh, they don't let up many points at all, but really that's because teams can just run straight down their throats. Detroit was like that for a while, where you could do everything against Detroit. Yeah. Their run defense has been unbelievable the last few weeks. It's just crazy.
Do you think that that's because teams can pass on them, so it's the opposite effect of like the Houston?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it is. They're like legit just stopping. The yards per carry is like under 4, which even for those teams where you can do one or the other, you still see really high stats for that side. They just don't need it. They're just stopping the run.
The Lions' run defense the last 4 weeks. So they faced Saquon Barkley. He had 22 yards on 15 carries. All right.
That's
Travis
crazy.
Etienne, 54 yards on 13 carries. Decent.
That's
Dalvin Cook, 23 yards on 15 carries.
Wow.
And then next up, Zonovan Knight for the Jets. So what do you do there, right? He's looked pretty decent here the last couple of games, but
yes.
I don't see it getting any better, man. Yeah, you're right. This Detroit 1D has been solid.
I would love to see them in the playoffs. They're just fun. Next matchup, my team versus Empty Points. Landon, are we going to change the rules so that most points gets the last playoff spot?
Well, Josh, it's funny you bring that up.
Is it?
I feel like I've been asking for this for years.
It's with our current setting, with being a 10-team league and only 4 teams making the playoffs, I don't know how you can have the 4th team be in just because of high points. That would mean that you really only have to be fighting. I mean, everyone wants to get the most points, but now you're really down to 3 spots making the playoffs plus that high score. I think if we were to do something like that, and I am open for it, you would have to increase the amount of playoff teams to 6. And then the top 2 teams would get a bye. We'd have to rearrange everything. But
no way.
What do you think?
He has 60% of the teams in the league
That's the
making
thing.
playoffs.
I know. So
I think you guys are agreeing.
Yeah, I think it would.
Landon's just saying you can't make the fourth team be based on points.
Yeah, I think it kind of has to
do.
stay the way it is in our league. If we want to get a couple more teams in our league and make it a 12-team league, then I'm all for making it 6, and then that 6th team gets in for high score. But
double headers, 2 double headers.
Yeah, what would you say before? Like it's all done by points, a win and score, something like that?
Basically the top 6, or I guess in our league, the top 5 teams for score would get a point that week, and then face your matchup. If you win your matchup, you get another point. So that's
it'd be interesting. Maybe I'll do it since I don't feel like working to see what that would have led to. The reason we bring this up, just in case the viewers' question, is because Bino's team, Empty Points, has by far maybe the 3rd most points in the league.
I think it's the 2nd.
2nd most. So there's no way this team should have missed the playoffs. Geoff, we've looked at most of the playoff teams or teams fighting for the playoffs. Where would you? Well, you've already answered.
Yeah, we've touched on a lot of the questions here already.
Yeah, never mind. Scratch it. Fuck it. Next matchup.
He's number 2 in points.
Only 32 points behind Chris, our leader.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'd be so furious if I was him. BJ, this was another close matchup, just maybe lower scores. Geoff, did it feel good winning this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to get a win, right? But
especially against BJB,
it was still a frustrating week. I mean, I know I texted you guys about this. Like, I had 60 points from 3 guys, and then I proceeded to go and get another 30 from another 6. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's brutal. So, winning this past week assures that I won't be dead last in the league, which is nice. That's a bonus. But it also just makes the rest of the season so much more frustrating. Some of those close losses, in particular the one against Fender, really hurts. Had I won, that one, and then going against Moreau a couple weeks ago, won that one, I would have had a chance to make the playoffs here, I think. So that's where I stand on last week's win.
Okay. Landon, I kind of talked about this earlier, I apologize, but is Jared Goff a franchise QB?
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of brought up a lot of good points. Yeah, I think he is. He's got the supporting cast around him now. He's got DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Amon Ra, now Jamison Williams, DJ Chark. I mean, he's got a solid group around him. It's just the only thing that's concerning is the home road splits. He does not play well on the road, and you need to be better than good 50% of the time to carry your team. So it'd be a good matchup this week to kind of see how. I mean, they're obviously trending upwards, but they have a really tough matchup in New York against the Jets. So it's a good barometer to see where he stands.
Yeah, it's going to be cold too, and I think he's kind of a warm weather type of quarterback, but obviously in the dome he does play well. But I think the more reps he gets under his belt, like that's just good for him. I mean, coming into a situation where maybe he didn't necessarily feel like, maybe he did think that he was a stopgap in the back of his mind. He's like, I'm just going to lose my job in 2 years anyways. But now the team is really starting to excel, and maybe it's going to boost his confidence a little bit more too, right? And maybe we don't know what's necessarily going on in the locker room with the coach. Dan Campbell could be in his ear, just like, you're my guy, and it's just pumping him up, So there's just a lot of things there that could play into the success that he's had this year. And I think we are looking at a franchise QB. The one thing I will say, in addition to that, though, is as a blanket, when they traded T.J. Hawkinson, like I think we all just kind of thought like they're giving up, like they're giving away one of their best players. And I know he's a tight end, but they traded Hawkinson. They got some nice draft picks coming up.
Yeah, they got a lot back.
What they did, they got great value for him, and it's only going to help them improve in years moving forward. So it looks like a great move now, but at the time it was like, man, you're giving away really what is one of your most legitimate weapons out there on offense. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't just have Amon-Ra, out there and Jared Goff.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be. And but that being said, like, it looks like a great move now, and that's nothing against Hockenson. I don't think he was a bad locker room guy or anything like that. But this is a great move that has certainly kind of changed their tune a little bit in Detroit.
Yeah. I feel when I wrote this question, I feel like I was being very insulting, so it might come off like that. All right. So for BJV, injuries once again being a huge factor. BJV losing Boyd
anyways, so whatever.
I know exactly. I didn't feel that bad. BJV lost Boyd like very early in the first quarter. But is BJV an example of you still have to put in the work to win. It can't just all be luck. And the reason I asked this question is because he has Mixon, King Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and he hit on Jamal Williams. And those four players all together missed a total of 5 games, which is amazing considering RB is the position where you're most at risk to lose a ton of games. So if you knew that he was going to lose that few games and had that many teams, don't you think you would have expected that team to be in first?
Yes,
does that make sense?
Absolutely, 100%. Like I'm going to go ahead and answer this right now because like this team is a result of poor management. Like there's just no denying that. Like a manager who doesn't work the waiver wire is going to miss out on opportunities, and he has 2 top 5 QBs on his roster.
Mm-hmm.
He could easily have made a trade for one of those between Burrow and Tua. He picked up.
He has Denver defense, which is outstanding, and then has Arizona on the bench.
That's another thing I was going to talk about later. He's
sorry.
There's 2. No, it's okay. That's a great call out. There's 2 critical pieces that are chess pieces for him, where he could easily slot guys in there on his way from the waivers on his bench and build out his depth. But again, he's not managing his bench spots well. He made a great pickup earlier in the year on Ayuk, who looks like a stud. But I want to give you these names that were out on the waiver wires at some point during our season. And again, this goes for everybody. Could have picked them up, but he has the most money on out of anybody, right?
He has $84
for
left.
the waiver wires, so he could have easily picked up any of these guys. We got Watson. These are all wide receivers. Okay, so these are all wide receivers that could have easily just plugged into his team, and I think it would have been pretty outstanding at this point. But Watson, Marquise Brown, I know he got injured, but he could have at least stashed and hoped to wait for him to get back because he was just kind of hanging around there in the playoffs. Elijah Moore, Deontay Johnson. Okay, I know he hasn't scored a touchdown.
I have those first 4 receivers you just said.
DPJ, Peoples Jones, Burks for Tennessee.
Yep.
Tyler Lockett was out there. I mean, that's incredible.
He's had an amazing
And
game.
Chris Olave. All guys that have been picked up off of our waiver wire. So just a little bit of work. He could have maybe picked up 2 of those guys, and I think his team would have been a real contender.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, next match, last one, I believe.
And let's just call it out. Props to the managers that picked up those players. Those are
definitely.
Games.
Not So Big Tasty beats Danza All-Stars. Another close game. No questions from me, so we're going to move on. Geoff, Hahndо's Huddle.
All right.
Also,
huddle up, boys. Huddle up. Huddle up.
Can I just
bring it in?
Unrelated, because I was shopping for beer earlier. There's a wine that's called like Hans.
Oh yeah, Han
wine.
Han
Yeah.
Winery. Han Winery.
I almost bought it just for you.
Yeah, it's
all right,
good.
go ahead.
It's good stuff. No, so it's German, right? Han.
Oh, is he Germans?
German is the name Han, and it means rooster or cock in German. Yeah.
Grossman in German means great man. I think I win.
It's funny. It means the opposite in English. All right. So moving forward. this week, boys. All right, so guy that we wouldn't normally say, but in a matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? We've always talked about how this could be an unfavorable matchup to our wide receivers. I actually like Jamar Chase a lot this week, okay? And especially if Higgins doesn't play, because he's going to be the only show in town. But it is kind of looking right now, it's trending like Jamel Dean might not be able to go this week, which is a big boost. And if that's the case, Jamar Chase will line up against Murphy Bunting, who is allowing an 80% catch rate. So give me some Jamar Chase.
Yes, please.
Love A.J. Brown again this week. This guy is on an absolute tear. He's had 4 scores in the last 3 games. He's going to be lining up on the left most often. About 50% of the time he's on the left. And if so, he'll be facing Jalen Jones, who's allowed 18 catches on 24 targets. And if he's in the slot, then he's going to be facing Kyler Gordon. We talked about Kyler Gordon. Target this guy. 80% catch rate. Forget about it. All right, so we got Garrett Wilson in a bounce-back game. I like him a lot against the Lions this week, and I like Mike White. He's been great. So, give me some Garrett Wilson in a nice bounce-back position. Elijah Moore could slot in there too, but I'm leaning Garrett Wilson in this call. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, these Tennessee cornerbacks are atrocious, and it really looks like Herbert has been kind of getting healthy, I guess, and he looks a lot better in these last few weeks. So I do like the Chargers. Downgrades. Okay. Tyreek Hill. I don't like Tyreek Hill this week. Banged up. You know, we saw him kind of limp off the field a little bit. I'm sorry, Grossman. I know this guy.
No,
I don't even know if he played the last series when they were kind of chasing there last week. I think he was out due to some sort of hip injury or something he's got going on. Tough matchup on the road this week. Will most likely be shadowed by Tre'Davious White. Okay, we saw that last week. Garrett Wilson was shadowed by Tre'Davious White, and I expect the same in this game. Now, if Tyreek Hill does get in the slot, which he does a lot, let's not deny
let's
that.
not kid ourselves.
He'll be facing Terrence Johnson, who's allowed a 73% catch rate, so that could be good. But Tua hasn't had a great history playing in cold weather games, and this is going to be extremely cold up in Buffalo this week. So you know, Hill in this matchup in week 3 only went 2 for 4 for 33 yards. So, you know, Buffalo might have a little bit of a key to shutting down this offensive juggernaut, which is the Miami Dolphins. They got to get up. They got to get up on these guys early. They got to press them off the line. They can't just be sitting back playing zone and let these guys get to open spots. And I think that's what we'll see from them this week. So, George Pickens, J.C. Horn has been playing some really good football for the Carolina Panthers. I don't really like him. I don't like Pickens this week. And truthfully, Horn has probably been one of the biggest bright spots for the Panthers in their seasons. Hopkins will be facing Patrick Surtain. Surtain only gives up 0.2 yards per route run. And again, we talked about Colt McCoy pulling the trigger a little bit. I think that could hurt Hopkins this week. DJ Chark going against Sauce Gardner for the Jets. Sauce has been playing great, so I don't love DJ Chark. All the Chicago Bears, I'm not sure how these guys are going to move the ball against this nasty Philadelphia defense. And finally, Chris Moore. Even though there's no Brandon Cooks, Trent McDuffie for Kansas City has been only allowed 20 yards over his last 4 games and has only allowed a 50% catch rate. So don't love Chris Moore this week.
I was thinking about playing him in Dynasty. Now I might not.
No, what are we going to do?
And
that's all I got, boys.
Huddle. I love it. All right.
Break.
Looking at week 15, deciding who gets those last couple of playoff matchups first. Playoff spots. First matchup, myself versus number 1 seed Crispy. Geoff, we already talked about it, but you would play Mike White, assuming he's healthy, over Watson, right?
I like White. Yes, I do, especially against Detroit. I know they've been playing some better ball, but these are high-scoring games too that Detroit's putting up, and so a shootout is always potential shootout is always a good thing. Nothing to lose for Chris here, even if he rolls White out there and he gets injured with a big hit or something like that. So I think you roll him out there, see what you got, and Baltimore on the other side, he's got Watson. Baltimore has been winning games on the defensive side of the ball. It's not the offense. I mean, yeah, they might score 13 points in the game, but it's the defense that's keeping them in those games. So, I got to go white.
Landon, I picked up Jeff Driscoll, who has tight end eligibility in that sort of Taysom Hill manner. Are you rolling with Driscoll or Hunter Henry?
I would go Driscoll. I think he's got the higher floor. Hunter Henry has a floor of a goose egg, and I don't think that Driscoll has that low of a floor. He threw for 38 yards, had a passing touchdown. He also ran for 36 yards. So I think it's a safer play, and I think he's higher ceiling. So I'd go Driscoll.
I got one for you here. I got one right here for you, though. Driscoll, Dulcich, or Okonkwo. You like
who's Okonkwo? Is that the Tennessee
That's my guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who are they playing?
Tennessee is playing the Chargers.
The Chargers, with probably no Treylon Burks.
Dulcich is playing Arizona, number one against tight
I'd go
ends.
Dulcich.
I think I'd go D.
So I only asked because I have Driscoll in my other league, Dulcich as well. I picked them both up this week, trying to figure out who I'm going to play in the tight end spot. And then I see that Okonkwo's out there on the waiver wires. He's been hot. It's like, man, I'm just trying to make sure I maximize all the points that I can, given that this is the first week of the playoffs for us. And I don't know between Driscoll and Dulcich, honestly. It scares me if Wilson doesn't play, right? Like, is Dulcich
Yeah, but Wilson hasn't even been that great, so I don't think it's that big of a downgrade.
Yeah, but you don't know
how we.
I don't know. I think Driscoll probably does have the higher floor than Dulcich, but that's tough.
I like it. Appreciate it, boys.
Who wins this one?
Grossman wins and knocks me out of the playoffs.
I like Grossman's team as well. I'm sorry, man. We gotta throw it out
sticking
there.
with the reverse jinx. I say Chris. Chris wins this one. Although Landon, I still think Finder misses the playoffs. So all right, next matchup. Give it one sec. All right.
BC's Nation versus Touchdown My Pants.
That's right. Geoff, another injury to your team with Pierce out the next few weeks. You also have some big names on the bench, at least at the time that I was writing these questions, with Mike Evans and Gibson.
Wow.
Evans has been getting a lot of targets, but not a lot of fantasy points. Give me your take on Evans. Is this the beginning of the end for him, or just a bad couple games?
No, I'll tell you. I mean, I think Tampa needs to blow this whole thing up. Honestly, I think it's the result of a bad offensive line, not the beginning of the end for Evans necessarily, but this is bad offensive line, which means pressure on the quarterback, pressure on Tom Brady, who can't obviously move around back there very well. They can't run the ball, so they can't set up the play action. Their run game sucks. So, again, I think all this starts with the offensive line. They need to improve that in order to see improvement out of the wide receiver position, especially the guy who plays the outside, Mike Evans.
Hey, Geoff, I have just a real question on your lineup.
A real question?
You said you don't like George Pickens this week in your own Hondo's Huddle, but you got him in the lineup over Amari Cooper.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't like Amari Cooper. I mean, he's banged up, and I don't like Baltimore. I think Baltimore.
Amari Cooper's at home, though. He does very well at home.
I know, but Baltimore's pass defense, they're nasty. They're good, and with Humphrey, especially, I think he's going to be blanketing him. And
good question, though, Landon.
No, that's outstanding, and so I just don't trust Watson right now. I got to see it before I can trust him.
Fair enough.
Landon, for Bryden, Thielen has been, as he has been the last couple of years, very TD dependent, and is going against a very good Colts pass defense. Would you start Akers over him or stick with Thielen?
I would stick with Thielen. Akers is also pretty touchdown dependent. I mean, he's not his rushing efficiency isn't very good. He's not breaking off any big runs or running for over 100 yards anytime soon. I don't think so. So I'd go with Thielen and the upside of the touchdown and the targets.
Okay. Who wins in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to win this one. I'm going to win.
Yeah, after 25 points from Kittle.
Insult it's going to be more insult to injury. I mean, yeah, as far as like not being better throughout the season, I'll win and I'll miss the playoffs. I'll be like 5th.
Yep, I agree. I think you will win and miss the playoffs.
Yes, I agree.
Next match, let's talk about another team that will miss the playoffs. Matt Finder's Olave can stay currently in 3rd versus Not So Big Tasty. Geoff for Finder, Ramondre looks like he's going to miss this game. Would you start Brian Robinson or Zay Jones? Oh, he's starting both now. Okay, never mind.
Okay, well, I got to start Robinson. He had 21 rush attempts in the same matchup for 110 total yards 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I would have to start Robinson in this.
Okay. Landon, if Jacoby misses, which I think he will, who are you starting?
To what he has, I would be going probably a Josh Palmer. Even though you got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams back, Tennessee is not good against the wide receiver position, and I think he's got a higher ceiling than the others on his bench.
Okay, who wins?
Not so big and not so tasty.
Yep.
I like it. I agree. Next matchup. Landon also fighting for those playoff spots versus Bino. Empty points. Geoff for Bino, Kamara has. I know it's rough to end the season against him. Kamara has disappeared in 4 of the last 5 games. Would you consider starting White or London over him?
Yes, and yes.
All 3 of them?
Not against Atlanta. I gotta roll Kamara out there. If he doesn't get it done this week against Atlanta, then he's dead to me. That's how I look at it.
Landon, you have Marquise Brown and Elijah Moore on the bench. You still have those guys on the bench. Any consideration in starting? Oh, you have changed? Okay. You still have Foreman starting.
Yeah.
And you have Marquise Brown on the bench. Any consideration in changing that, or do you believe in Foreman?
I still believe in Foreman a little bit, even though the emergence of a Chuba Hubbard kind of scares me a little bit. Because Foreman doesn't really catch the ball. But Marquise Brown against Denver with a backup quarterback, I'm not really feeling that at the moment.
Yep, I hear you. All right,
he had a good look in that game, though. I mean, Colt McCoy threw him a beautiful ball. It went through his arms. He laid out for it.
No, I would have won that week then.
He should have caught it. Honestly, it would have been 30 yards, and if he bounced back up, it could have been a score. So, anyways, go on.
Who wins this one?
Bino.
Danza. No, wait. Empty points.
Yep.
Danza.
He just got too many good players.
Yeah, his team is just stacked.
Not Fields. I'm sorry.
He's got tough matchups, though, outside of Hurts,
man, is just going to have 90 points.
All right, I agree. Yeah. Empty points.
Yeah.
Last matchup, BJV versus Danza. Again, BJV fighting for that last playoff spot. Geoff, for BJV, if Boyd is out, who from the bench are you starting in his place? I think
Curtis Samuel, but this is we talked about this earlier. This is where I was going to call this out. Curtis Samuel would probably be the guy that I would throw in there, but look at this bench. He's got a defense. He's got another QB sitting on here. It's eating up critical bench pieces.
Another tight end.
It's eating up critical bench pieces that he could easily have other options, other alternatives. So that's just bad management, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Landon, for Walter, let's assume that everyone on his team is healthy. He's got Pacheco, Montgomery, and McLaurin on his bench. Are you starting any of those guys over Najee?
Yeah, I would go Pacheco this week over Najee. Najee. I don't know why I said Najee.
Najee?
I don't know.
Because I said Najee.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was my fault.
Yeah, you threw me off. Pacheco against this Houston run defense, I think he's got pretty high floor, pretty good high ceiling as well. I would go Pacheco over Harris this week.
All right, who wins this one?
Donza, on fantasy principle alone. Fantasy principle alone says that I have to pick Donza.
I'm going to say BJB.
You getting 2.9 right now.
All right.
Oh,
We're going to go
just
look
got more.
at. Now we'll look at Dynasty. We're going to talk both the playoffs and the consolation playoffs because the consolation playoffs determine the first 6 rookie picks. So we will start with Moreau versus the Jewish Ditka. Landon for Adam, if Ramondre misses the game, who should he start in his place? I don't really want to go through all of his bench. But.
I looked at it. I would be moving Fournette out of the flex, move him to the RB position, and I would probably play Paris Campbell. If Darren Waller gets activated off of IR, I would be throwing Darren Waller in there.
Really? Okay. Geoff, the Jewish Ditka has been one of the strongest teams all year, but a lot of his guys have been pretty inconsistent. Finish this sentence. The Jewish Ditka loses this matchup if
Moreau scores more points.
Oh my God. That's the laziest answer.
Good thing we have a podcast right there.
Oh, right.
All right. So if Higgins is out, okay? All right. If Higgins is out and Burrow has a day, then that most likely means that Moreau is going to gain an edge because he has Jamar Chase, right? So that's kind of an interesting little dilemma that's playing out here between these two teams. But truthfully, I think it's going to come down to Adams or Dak. So if Dak has a bad game, I think we could potentially see a little bit of an upset here with Moreau. But I do like the Jewish Ditka in this matchup. He's got a lot of good.
Landon, agree?
Yep.
The Jewish Ditka wins?
Yep.
Yeah. Landon, your matchup against Matthew Finder in the other playoffs. Bino and Cheelan have a bye this week. Landon, for your team, if Richie James is out, who are you starting in his place?
Yeah, I'm going to go against it depends. If Jacoby Myers gets cleared, I'd be playing him, but it doesn't seem like he's going to. So I'd probably lean Chris Moore, and that's not good because it seems like Brandon Cooks is trending on playing now. So I don't it'd probably be Chris Moore. How am I in the playoffs? I don't know, but, whatever.
Most points.
Yeah.
Geoff, for Finder, Lamar is out again this week. Who are you starting in his super flex position?
Yeah, I looked at this lineup. I mean, I think
he picked up Driscoll either today or yesterday.
Yeah, I'd probably go Driscoll. But this is a good matchup for Landry, and if he plays, so we saw what he did in week 1. But I also think Wilson is a pretty safe play here as well.
Yep. Who wins this one?
If he plays again, it's just one of those guys you got to monitor. So, sorry,
I'm going to go with Fender.
Geoff?
Fender. Sorry, I was just looking at this touchdown. Noah Fan.
Noah.
Just need my cap. I agree. Fender. We'll look at wrap it up with the consolation playoffs. Geoff and Roland's have a bye. My team versus Kevin's team. Landon for my team. DJ Moore looks like he's going to play, but he has been really, really bad. At least his floor has been pretty close to 0. Would you consider benching him for anybody on my bench?
Yeah, I mean, he put up a goose egg last week, didn't he? Oh.
The question is to Landon.
No, I'd stick with DJ Moore.
All right. Geoff, were you going to say something?
Didn't Moore have a goose egg last week?
He had like 0.6.
0.6? Yeah. Okay. I mean, you got to go Aguilar. Aguilar is going to have a monster game against Las Vegas, especially if Parker is not going to be back. And maybe Jacoby Myers too, right? So,
yeah, if those guys said, I might. Geoff, for Kevin, he has a lot of guys getting hot at the right time. Watson, Knight, Checo, Akers, Elijah Moore, Hubbard, Evan Ingram. He did lose Pierce last week, which was bad timing. But what interests me the most is his super flex decision. He has Ritter playing over Mayfield and Darnold. Would you do you agree with his start, or would you start either of those guys instead?
I love this start. Yes, I absolutely agree with this. We have no idea what the floor is for Ritter right now, but we know what Darnold's is. We know what Baker's is, and I think potentially we could see a better game out of Ritter. And Pittsburgh does have a nasty defense with Watt, so you certainly don't want to look to play. Darnold
Darnold.
there, and then the LA Rams. Just a fluke last week. I think that they won. I don't know how Baker manufactured that 97-yard drive for the win in the last 2 minutes of the game. So, yeah, I got to go Ritter here.
Okay. Who wins this one?
Grossman.
I hope so. Last matchup, Ryan versus Ed's team, Zell. Landon for Ed's team, Zell 3119, which I don't know what that means. He is going with Mills in his super flex, but he has Colt McCoy and Trubisky. If Pickett is in concussion protocol, would you start either of those guys over Mills?
Yeah, I would probably go Colt McCoy in that position. I mean, Mills is he's splitting time at quarterback, and he doesn't have the rushing upside that Driscoll has. So a quarterback that's splitting time on a bad team, I'll take a pass on that.
Okay. Geoff, for Blackman, he has lost Lance, Stafford, and Kyler, which is rough considering he has some very good receivers and RBs. As of Wednesday, he had Cobb in his superflex. Who would you start at the superflex position? I don't know if he starts.
Yeah, looking at his roster, he doesn't really have like the quarterback that you'd like to see, but I'd have to go either Corey Davis, Gibson, or Van Jefferson, probably in that order.
Okay.
Gibson,
okay, last question.
Corey Davis depends on healthy or not, so pay attention to that, I guess.
Got it. Last question, very quickly, and mainly because we've seen so many injuries to
Blackman wins that matchup. By the
oh
way.
yeah, who wins?
Zell.
Blackman. He's got 67 points right now. He's crushing it.
Purdy.
Yeah. Yep. Never mind.
I'll still say Zell. Last question, real quick. We have seen a lot of teams struggle with the two QBs, partly because of injuries, partly because there's just a lot of really bad QBs in the league. Question for you both is, what's the right number in Dynasty? What's the right number of starting QBs to be rostering? So how many bench spots do you basically take up with QBs?
I'm going to go with
3.
Yeah.
And you probably want 4. And unfortunately, in a 12-team league, like, you can't have 4. Not everybody can have 4, right? There's only 32 teams in the league. So there's going to be some teams that are only left with 3. But you got to have 3 just given the bye week situations.
Landon.
Sorry, Landon.
Agreed?
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I mean, I thought talk about my team real quick. I thought I had a good 3 with Jameis, and that backfired on me big time, and I don't have another one, so it really hurts when one of those guys are on a bye. So, yeah, I would go with 4 if at all possible.
Follow-up question. Landon, for your team, what do you think? I may not have given this any thought, but
probably not.
How do you solve that? Do you try to draft a QB rookie, or do you trade for someone like a Goff or a Daniel Jones or someone who you could have as a third?
I have no idea. I don't even know the rookies that are in this draft besides the Bijan character. So I'll have to do some research over the summer and see. Hopefully I can get a quarterback. But yeah, I don't know. Trade some draft picks.
All right. Well, that does it for us, guys.
There.
Yeah.
Number 1 overall should be a quarterback in the draft.
He's going to be.
Bryce Young.
Yeah, I'm excited to see him in the NFL. Any last words you guys want to say?
Texans, though. Are you excited to see
I know.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him on Carolina.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Over the Colts. All right,
guys.
Last
question? Anything else?
Anything else you guys want to say? Good show. Good luck everybody.
To everyone out there besides who we're playing. Well, absolutely. I need Grossman to lose, so good luck to Rolance. Crush him, please. And, yeah.
All right. That does it for us. Guys, have a good one.
Like and subscribe, boys. I love it.